Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you again for coming, and guess what? This is our MS Views and News very first program in the state of Virginia, and so this room is great, and I want to thank you all. This looks awesome, all right? You know, we're getting calls from people around the state asking when we're going to come to their area. In fact, a person came to me just a little while ago and asked when we're going to come to Lynchburg. And we cannot do it this year because our year is booked, so much so that every 7 to 10 days, I'm on the road going somewhere to do a program. And some of you have heard what it's been like already, but really, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I was here for your conference, and a week and a half later, I was in New York doing a program. And a week after that, or a week and a half after that, I was in San Francisco. Now I'm here. In another 2 weeks, we're going to be in Detroit. And 2 days after that, we're going to be in Mobile, Alabama. Talk about insane, top to bottom, okay? But again, it's just a lot to do. There's so many people that want to be educated, and this is exactly what we're trying to do, is just bring all this out there. Fortunately, we have the pharmaceutical industry to help us do this. And today, for instance, I want to thank Teva Neuroscience, and I hope you all do too, because they gave us the funding to do today's program. For those that don't know, for those that weren't here a month ago when I was asked, just on a whim, well, it wasn't on a whim, Suzanne asked me to come on over to Cinderella's closet, and I snuck up on her, and 3 weeks before the program, I called her up and I said, I'm coming. We're going to be there. So, and it was great. You know, I learned something from that program. I learned something from all of you that were at that program that I don't see in the rest of the country. You are so lucky to have the formats of the self-help groups that you have here, and that you have the alliance, you know, to help just bring certain things together, like Cinderella's Closet, that it's just really incredible. And you guys are lucky. I mean, you're very lucky to have the people that are helping bring this information to you. So, you know, I saw that and I said, wow, we got to try to educate others from around the country of what they're missing out on and what they need to see. So, you know, they should all come here and visit with you all one day. So MS Views and News, just so you know, again, we provide information, education, and resources to the entire global MS community, and this includes the caregivers. And by the way, how many caregivers are here today? Raise your hands. Thank you. All right, thank you. You all deserve it. You all greatly deserve, because for those that cannot do for themselves all the time or remember, we need you there. We need you to learn always, and thank you again. All right, next. I already spoke about our YouTube channel, already spoke about all these other things, so let me just try to move things along, speed roll ahead here. Whenever we come to a new area, we ask the local self-help group leaders if they'd like to come up and speak for 90 seconds about their group. And so today we have Kenneth is going to come on over, and he's going to speak about his group.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Stu's News and Views and MS News and Views and whoever we are. We're glad to have you here. I'm Kenny, and I'm one of the original 12 of the revamped Roanoke Valley MS Support Group. We are a great group that has grown to approximately 300 people on our mailing list now, and we are into education of folks with MS and without MS. We all need to be educated. We are into raising awareness about multiple sclerosis to everyone in the Roanoke Valley and surrounding areas and throughout the state and beyond. We're also into empowerment of folks living with MS, and we are into, really, this is the important one, having fun. Yeah. You know, just because we have trouble walking doesn't mean we can't laugh and have fun, and I love this group for doing that because we do a great job. We have 3 support groups here in this area. We have 2 here in the Roanoke Valley, one that meets the second Tuesday of every month at the Tanglewood Holiday Inn, and one that meets the 4th Thursday in the evening, also at Tanglewood Holiday Inn. And we have a group in Bristol, Virginia, and I've been there recently, and they're a great group as well. So we're glad to get together with everybody, and I'll pass it back to Stu.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you. Next, 2 special people that so many of you know about, and I get them confused. I call her Don and him Sharon.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sharon Cross, and I'm the group leader for the Mountain Empire MS Support Group in Bristol. We're an independent support group. Okay. And I am very honored to also be an ambassador for the Multiple Sclerosis Alliance of Virginia, which is very, very wonderful for me. Thank you. We got our help starting our group from Suzanne and all of you all, and we're thrilled. We just celebrated our first anniversary as a support group, independent support group in Bristol. And we are trying to educate and empower and get people together in Bristol and grow so that everyone knows what we deal with every day. Thank you.
The only other thing that I'd like to add is the MS Foundation and several affiliates like Stewart has helped reach the rural areas that brought people. We had a call from a 70-year-old lady up in Mountain City that would like to be part of our group, follows Stewart on his blog, and her husband has Parkinson's, so they can't get out. So this kind of program, the blog, the website, helps even people that can't come out to the programs like this. So we're really proud of this patient-based program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So Don hit it on the head. That's exactly the reason, again, why we like to video record our programs, is because for the countless people that live too far, whether it's or that's just health-wise, they can't get out to a program, or they don't have the transportation, this is the reason why we video record, and why, again, 140,000 clicked on there last year to look at this. Going back to one more thing before I ask Suzanne to come up, she should be making her way up, is that last year we did 53 programs. 53 programs in 52 weeks. Now you know why I'm out every 7 to 10 days, right? This year, how many are we doing again? 53 programs. No rest for the weary. Anyway, it's great, okay, because I get more empowered seeing you all smile, especially after the programs, when you come over and ask when we're going to come back again. So the more that you're out there, I get my energy from all of you, and I thank you again. Suzanne, your turn.
Stewart asked me to tell you a little bit about the Multiple Sclerosis Alliance of Virginia, and I honestly thought I was going to be surrounded by people that knew all about it, so it's nice to see some new faces. The MS Alliance of Virginia is a new nonprofit. We were formed in January 2016 because we had a support group that just kept growing and growing and growing, and the need was there. I think you guys can answer the question better than I can. Who here feels like they're a member of or a part of the MS Alliance of Virginia? Okay. If you didn't raise your, and that's good. If you didn't raise your hand, I'd like to know why. Because if MS has affected your life in any way, shape, or form, it is your group. It's not my group. We're trying to get the name Suzanne out of the picture. It hasn't been the most positive thing. We always blame Wayne and Juanita Gillespie because, you see, raise your hand. They are why I got involved. And most of you heard this story so many times. I always kind of look at Susan because she looks at me like, Suzanne, I've heard this 1,000 times. But I live in the middle of the woods in Floyd County. And if you're not familiar with the middle of the woods in Floyd County, it's kind of a community known for a place where the hippies and the old farmers got together and probably grew pot and went over the line to Franklin County and got some moonshine. But it's a very unique artistic community, and when I moved there, it wasn't with the intention of driving back to Roanoke on a regular basis. And so they called and asked me if I wanted to help with the support group, and I said no. And they were like, why? I'm like, well, I'm old, I'm retired, I live in the middle of the woods in Floyd County, and I don't really want to do that. Why don't you want to do it? Well, probably for the same reason you don't want to do it. But you know what? I did it because I thought maybe the support group needed me. I didn't need a support group, right? Well, I've eased off on the part of being the group leader, but now, last month, I was getting ready to come down to Roanoke. I live over an hour away. And where do I live, Wayne? In the middle of nowhere. And I was getting ready to come, and my husband goes, see, I told you. You're going to always do that. They're always going to need you. I'm like, no, you got it wrong this month, honey. I need them. And I'm going as a group member, not to run the group. So there's so many things I could say about the Multiple Sclerosis Alliance, but the other day, Diana and I were talking. Diana's my co-president, and she's not my friend, but she's my co-president. And I was saying, you know, maybe everybody doesn't get us. Maybe some people think that we're silly, or some of the things we do are immature, because we do a little fantasy thing called Cinderella's Closet. And we do fun things. We do cruises, and we do beach trips, and we play Jingo with people with MS that can't even walk right, that lose, right. But you know what her answer was? Suzanne, that's part of what we're about, the fantasy. It's what keeps us all smiling and happy. And so if you're not familiar with the MS Alliance of Virginia, check us out. We're a big deal, and we're created by us. And I invite you to come to our hospitality room before you leave today. We have a hospitality room on the 3rd floor, room 336. And you know how you make, somebody says, tell me something? So I wrote all these little notes and had all this stuff. And you know what? I'm sure my 2 minutes are up. There you go. But I hope you learned a little bit more about us, and I hope you're interested in learning a whole lot more about us. And thank you for this time. And Stuart, thank you guys for bringing MS Views and News here.
Thank you. Thank you. She's wonderful, huh?
Thank you so much.
So, again, after coming all here with all of you, you know, this abrasive New Yorker guard went down at your Cinderella's Closet, you know, and that's when I learned that I could have fun with you all, and that's why this became so special to me. All right? So, today's event, Dr. Kramer, she made it here, see? And she's got a great topic, a new thing that even I'm going to hear today, and a new format of how she's going to provide you with information about the topics that we asked her to speak about. So the steps are around the other side if you'd like to come around. I don't think you want to hop up, do you? Oh, boy. Wow. Very impressive. Very impressive. Thank you.
How's that for as old as I am? All right, so I dressed casually today. I usually dress up for you guys. I put on lipstick, but that's about it. Because I kind of felt like instead of doing a presentation and talking to you for an hour and then having questions like we usually do, we'd sit and talk. I was given 4 topics to go over, and so I made some slides that are really kind of talking points, but what I'm interested in is whatever you're interested in. We're supposed to talk about how to improve communication with your doctor. We're supposed to talk about disease-modifying therapies and how they act, their pros and cons, what their efficacy is, what their side effects are, risks are. I'm supposed to talk to you about how to get all of your medical needs met. That should take a minute or two. And we're supposed to talk about, oh, I'm blanking on the 4th one. I knew that was going to happen. What was it? Suzanne doesn't know either, so we're good.
Access to care.
Access to care. I'm not sure what access to care issues you wanted to talk about. So I could make up a whole bunch of stuff that I think are a problem, but I'm the doctor. If you're trying to access me and you can't, I might not know that. So I thought I'd get some feedback from you and we can talk about what we're gonna do, okay? So, hence the jeans. Plus, I have to go to Sam's Club after this and didn't want to do it in heels. Anybody up for a trip to Sam's Club? It's going to be fantastic. This is who I am. I'm Jill Cramer, Blue Ridge Associates in Neurology. Brain, ha. I'm down in Christiansburg. I am a general neurologist, but I have a special interest in multiple sclerosis for anybody who does not already know who I am. So I treat a whole bunch of patients with multiple sclerosis. I trained in Georgetown, so that's where I went to medical school, and then Denver, which is where I learned about multiple sclerosis the first time around. I stayed in Denver for 3 more years where my patients taught me really how MS works. And then I've been in the New River Valley, Roanoke area since 2005, so 12 years. So let's talk a little bit about doctor's visits. These were kind of my talking points, but I also wanted to get some feedback from you all as well. Doctor's visits they can be challenging. They can be challenging for everybody. I know that sounds weird, right? The biggest challenge is just getting there. Well, not really, not really. I want to talk about what to do before the visit to get things ready and why. So we doctors will tell you all the time what to do, but we won't tell you why that's important. What I would suggest you do during the visit, after the visit, and then how do you get a hold of anybody at the doctor's office between visits? And why is it so hard? I'm just going to explain it. It's not great. I'm not excusing anybody or talking it out, but just some thought. So before the visit, I suggest that you update your medical history. Have you had any new diagnoses, new medications, new procedures, surgeries since the last time you saw the doctor? If you haven't, write that down somewhere. No new medical history. Update medications. Make sure the doses are correct. Pull out your bottles if you're not sure. Make a list. Some of my patients just bring me a list, and we use that list. Check for the medication refills due. So at the bottom of the refill label on your prescription, it's going to say blank refills by blank. And here are the rules. If the number before the word refill says 0, you have no refills left, and the next time you go to the pharmacy, the pharmacist is going to say, oh, I can't fill that until I contact your doctor. The pharmacy is going to put into the computer a request to the doctor, which the doctor will get some probably hours later, and then the doctor will look at it, review your chart, make sure that they've seen you within a reasonable period of time so that they are still an active physician, and then they will refill the prescription. What may then happen is that the insurance company says, oh no, you don't have a prior authorization on file. What to do? The pharmacy then gets that information, has to send it back to the doctor, who then has to send it to their assistant to get a prior authorization. You see why getting refills can sometimes take forever? Every person in that whole process can slow it down. So what's best is if you see 1 refills left on your bottle, let the pharmacy know when you go pick it up, hey, let's ask my doctor now for the next refill. Now you got a month's worth of medicine for us to figure out how to get you your next month's worth of medicine. Now, it's not going to be this complicated for all medicines. Some medicines, if I know I just saw you yesterday, you forgot to tell me you needed a refill, I know I saw you, it's for a medicine that is generic, it doesn't require a prior authorization, that whole process can take 15 minutes. But in the interest of saving you the time and aggravation, I do a lot of talks for folks with MS about how to preserve your energy, how to make it easier for your memory, how to decrease the fatigue factor. This is one way to just get a little bit ahead of it and make it easier. So what does the by date? The by date mean? Okay, so you're going to see 1 refill by August 25th, 2017. A prescription that has been written by a doctor goes dead in 6 months for certain medicines and 12 months for other medicines. So I don't care if you have 147 refills. If the buy date was yesterday, you don't have access to any of them. So if you are a month away from the buy date, or you see 1 refills, let your pharmacy know, I'm running out. That may be a 3-month refill, it might be a 1-month refill, doesn't matter. I recommend just staying ahead of it and ask a month in advance of either the number of refills or the buy date, just so you don't have to worry about it. It's no big deal. You can let other people argue about it and not have to worry about it. Make a list of your questions and concerns. So pull out a list. Hey, I wanted to know about this. I was reading about this, or somebody mentioned this. What does the doctor think about this? And then also prioritize them. If you have time to go through the whole list, fantastic. If you don't, if something really ends up being time-consuming, you want to make sure you get to your top 2 or 3 concerns first. So put them at the top. If you can do any of this on the computer, I know not everybody has computer savvy, I know that not everybody has a computer, I know that not everybody has online access, but almost all physician and hospital offices now have online portal systems for you to go into their system and update your information. If you can do it online a day or two in advance of your appointment, you're going to save yourself some time when you get to the doctor's office. So that's a really good way to stay in touch with your doctor's office. Now, if you don't mind filling out forms when you get there and waiting because the doctor had to wait for the 8 people in front of you to fill out their forms and the 3 people before that to find their insurance card and all of those other things, and it makes everybody behinder and behinder, if that doesn't bother you, totally cool. Doesn't bother me either if it doesn't bother you, but some people really like to cut their time and really make things more efficient. And again, you have MS, you have fatigue. It's hard to remember things. If you've already done it, you don't have to remember it when you get to the doctor's office and oops, there's a stack of papers. We're gonna have papers for you anyway. That's okay, you just put that anywhere. It's good. We have to, once a year, have you fill out the HIPAA forms, releases, all kinds of other paperwork, and it would be nice if you had everything else updated before you even got there, if you are able. Now, here's one of my gripes. Every single doctor's office has a different portal. So we were sort of promised as physicians when we started using electronic medical records that there would be some super uber cloud that everybody could get their hands on and it would all be in one place and the patient could just refer you to that one place and it would all be perfect and the angels would sing and unicorns would dance, and that's not how it happened. So my system is different than Carillion's system is different than an independent physician in Vinton's system. So we've all got a different portal. So I'd love to tell you you could update that portal just every 6 months and it would all go to everybody. It doesn't. So each doctor needs their own update. It makes sure that your information is accurate. I used to work in a hospital system where the patient did not input information and the physicians did, and nobody ever removed anything. So if you were ever considered for a diagnosis, it ended up on your active problem list. It was a nightmare trying to figure out what people did have and what they didn't have. It was awful. Now, fortunately, that was many, many years ago, and hopefully that hospital system's not using that system anymore. And no, it was not a hospital system around here, so don't try to figure it out. We've gotten a lot better about using computers, but still things can end up on your list. It's like a credit report, right? Hey, I paid that bill. Why is that still on my credit report that I'm behind on that? Well, same thing. Hey, I don't have lupus. That was ruled out. Needs to come off the list. So that's why it's important to look at your information, see what we have on file, see what we think we know about you, and correct us when we're wrong. At the visit, be ready when you come in to update your insurance information. If you've gotten new cards, bring them or copies of them. If you have changed your insurance or your name or your address or your phone number or your email, let your doctor know. Yes, each individual doctor. We don't share that information either. There's this little law called HIPAA that prevents us from sharing information that you have not given us written permission. So if you update your information, then we can get a hold of you, we can charge your insurance, and it just makes it simpler. That one step up front, updating your information, can save you a whole lot of hassle and aggravation later. Bring in any new records. I'm not sure I can emphasize this enough. Patients often assume, and I think for good reason, you've sort of been told all of this is going to happen automatically and is going to be taken care of. But patients often assume when they come see me, especially as a new patient, that their doctor's office forwarded everything I need. Oh, some of you are laughing. You must have run across this too. These are my people. We've been through this together before. This drives me bananas because a primary care physician's front desk staff are limited in time, right? So they send me the referral and the last office visit note, which will sometimes read something like this. Patient has complicated MS, needs urgent referral to Dr. Kramer ASAP. Will write the referral form. Period. That's all I got. You come in and say, well, didn't you know about my new MRIs that showed 18 new lesions? Nope. Well, didn't you know about which medications I've taken before? You don't either? Now you've wasted your time, and I actually feel pretty awful about that. I feel terrible wasting your time. The people I see have neurological conditions. You don't have time to sit around in a doctor's office looking at me feeling bewildered because nobody sent me stuff that they needed. Well, you can help out with this. I don't expect you to waste your time running around every hospital and picking things up yourself, because that's going to increase your fatigue and your aggravation. What you can do is fill out release forms for the hospital to send me copies of your films. They do it on CD now. It's much better than people hauling around 80 pounds of films that they dug out of their back closet. It's nice. I can always request this stuff, and I'm happy to do that, but then you're going to have to come back to see me to go over what I found out. And if you don't mind waiting 2 to 4 months to do that, I don't either. But you've got better things to do with your time. I'm going to be there. That's what I get paid to do, right? That's my job, is go over your results and that sort of a thing. But sitting down and talking with you, that's your time. And making the most of that time is what I'm hopefully going to give you some tips. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. You're not a front desk. You're not medical records at any of these places. But these are some things that you can do. If you just had an MRI done, as soon as you get out of the scanner, say, hey, can I grab a copy of that CD? They don't need the report on it. That is so easy if you remember to do it. And I know memory can be a problem. But if you remember to do it while you're there, that step will save you an awful lot of aggravation later. And here's another tip. Don't give us the CDs unless you mean it. So if you hand me the CD, you're going to want that back. Because although I may hang on to that CD, I might also accidentally lose it. Because I can afford to, I can order another one. You can't. You're going to get charged if you ask for more and more CDs. If that's your CD and it's the only one you've got, and there's a chance you might want another doctor to look at it, keep it. Put it in a file. Tell me, no, that's my CD. You get your own, sister, because you can get it for free. Okay? Now, if you think, oof, I'm going to lose that thing, and there's a better chance you won't, and if you do, you can get another one for free, that's fine. I'll hang on to them for you. I keep them in a file. We have an entire room for that sort of thing. But if you're going to be seeing another doctor for another condition that might need to see your CDs, take it with you. For example, you've got MS. I wanted your cervical spinal MRI to look at your MS, but you've also got a disc. And you have an appointment coming up in a month with the next surgeon. You're going to want that CD because the surgeon's going to want to take a look at it. That's me. Thank you. I get these random phone calls offering me Disney vacations because I take a ton of vacations, you know. All right. Bring those CDs with you. Bring your insurance cards. Just stick it in your wallet. Make a copy of it, whatever you need to do, because the front desk staff are kind of obsessed with people's insurance cards. Go through your list of concerns by priority. Start with number 1. Number 1, I'm having a lot of fatigue. What do I do? All right, we may or may not get to your wheelchair needs a new wheel. If we do, great, but if that's not top priority, don't bring it up first. I sometimes suggest to people, bring up the thing first that you're most afraid of the answer. Here's why. Oh, by the way, I'm really worried about XYZ is really not the way to end the office visit. It's just not. It'd be kind of like if you called up your friend and said, you know what, I'm really worried about my mom, I think she has cancer, but instead you talk about everybody's day and you get through everything, and right when your friend says, oh, I'm so sorry, I need to run out, I have another appointment, and you say, oh, by the way, I really called to talk about my mom. Unfortunately, doctors, we've got our next patient waiting. Sometimes we've got 3 or 4 more waiting. We want to talk to you about your biggest concern. So help us know what your biggest concern is right up front. I'd love to tell you after all these years I'm a mind reader. I'm not. I'm pretty good at reading body language, but mind's not so much. So just come in with your priorities. Sometimes when people pull out their lists, now I've heard I'm a weird doctor because I like the lists. I love when people bring in lists. I'll sometimes take the lists from them if they don't mind sharing and say, oh, it's a good one. All right, let's see. I'm going to go through these things first, but you tell me what's top. What's the most important? If you haven't already prioritized it, we'll start with that, and then I can talk to you about some of the other ones, and it gives me a chance to kind of organize how we're going to do it also to make it more logical. Some doctors apparently hate lists, and you have to keep them hidden. I don't know. Still write them, still bring them, still keep them at the top, all right? Be sure to ask questions if the information is unclear. I had a visit with a patient just a couple of weeks ago, and I absolutely said the wrong thing. I said, all right, so when we get your neck MRI back, and I kept talking, and she looked really confused. And I stopped for a second, and she said, don't you mean my brain MRI? And I said, yeah, I do. I just popped out with the wrong word. It was confusing, and she was absolutely appropriate and correct to ask for clarification instead of just going on thinking she was going to get a neck MRI. I know doctors' offices sometimes happen fast, and they kind of go quickly, and sort of it feels like standing in front of a fire hose, I'm sure. But if there's something that doesn't make sense, just say, hang on, I didn't catch that. I didn't get that. While you're thinking about it, while you're still in the conversation, if you can. Doctors have a lot of things that we have to do at your visit. We have to update your social history. We have to make sure that your medication list matches what you've told us you're taking. We have to go through and have our front desk make sure that your address, phone number, date of birth, gender, and ethnicity are updated. Yes, your ethnicity. We have to update your ethnicity just in case it's changed, I guess. We have to get your vital signs. We have to document what we've discussed in a way that doesn't assume anything. So we ask dumb stuff like, yep, doc, I'm still having trouble tripping. Okay, is that all day or is that just in the morning? You've told me this 100,000 times. I know it's all day, you know it's all day. We have to go through that again. Why? Because in an effort to make sure that everybody gets the same care no matter where they go, we all have check boxes that we go through. So when the doctor walks into the room, they're already working on their list. We want your list to be at the top of the priority, but all of that stuff has to get done too. So let's use your time wisely. How about after the visit? Just kind of go over your notes. If you're not good at thinking and taking notes at the same time, bring somebody with you. I always love when the scribe comes in. So I get the patient sitting there and then somebody else whips out a notebook and I say, you're the scribe, I like it. Somebody besides me is taking notes. We can compare later and see how we did. I type most of my notes while I'm sitting there talking to you. I used to accompany people singing on the piano, so I can look at you and type at the same time. It is super freaky, I understand. I've been offered jobs as court stenographer. So I do that because it's much more accurate. While you're talking, if you say, well, on Friday, I sort of tripped a little bit, your note will probably say, patient reports that on Friday he sort of tripped a little bit. It's much more accurate that way. If I go to the end of my day and try to remember what we talked about, it's going to be much more brief and nowhere near as accurate. Now, some doctors don't type very fast, hate computers, etc., and so they do dictate later, and I'm sure they are very good at that skill. My memory is not that good, so I like to type while I'm talking to you. You do the same. Go over your notes, pick up your prescriptions, make sure they're correct. It just takes a second to open the bag and take a look. As soon as you walk away from the pharmacy counter, you've bought those prescriptions, that's it. So if it's the wrong dose, or you misunderstood the instructions, or you don't know how to take this new medicine, stop while you're there and ask the pharmacist. And make sure you understand all of those instructions. Make sure it makes sense, just review it. How do you get a hold of a doctor between visits? Here's the short answer, you probably won't. My day starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I'm not even going to tell you about trying to get my 3-year-old out of bed and get his breakfast ready and have him watch Paw Patrol first. We're going to start with when I walk in my office, okay? 8:30 to 5:30, I am, from the minute I walk in to the minute I leave, seeing patients and taking care of that which is urgent that particular day. So if you call in at 2 o'clock and say, oh my gosh, I ran out of my Ritalin, I need it right now, I'm going to do everything I can to get that done right now. Anything not urgent goes on the not urgent list for tomorrow. So I'm probably not going to be able to return phone calls. I used to, when I first started in practice here and I only had like 10 patients, it was great. I'd sit and I'd chat with people and talk to them, and you can't do that after you've been in practice for about a year, even though I'd like to. So if somebody tells me they hate my phone tree, I sympathize. I hate it too. I hate phone trees. It drives me nuts. I call to talk to another doctor and I get this stupid danged phone tree. Press 1 if you need directions to our location. No, I need to talk to a friggin' doctor. I need to press 1 for the friggin' doctor. Press 2 if you'd like to make an appointment. Not a patient, people. Get to the doctor option. Press 3 if you have a refill request. Oh my gosh, when does this end? I get it. I hate phone trees too. I love when I pick up the phone and somebody actually answers, but the chances the person who's answered can actually help me are like 0, and I end up leaving a message anyway. So at my office, I tell folks, if you need an appointment, the second it says, thank you for, hit the number you need. We don't have a phone tree where you have to listen for the options first. So if you need an appointment, shove 1. Don't push it, don't mash it, shove it. Just go straight to it. You need to get a message to me as soon as possible, 4. 4 is your option. Why? Because that goes straight to Renee. And anybody who's one of my patients knows that if Renee leaves, I'm going with her. I can't get nothing done when that woman's not in my office. She does everything but actually see the patients. She's amazing. If Renee is not on the phone, which happens for about 5 minutes out of every day, she will answer her phone when you call. Unfortunately, she spends a lot of time talking to insurance companies. She can get near about anything through an insurance company. She's talking to patients, she's returning phone calls, she's calling people with their results, so her phone line is busy a lot. It'll go to her voicemail. Leave her a message. I promise she checks them all the time. She's almost as obsessive, well, she's probably more obsessive compulsive than I am. So if you leave her a message, she's going to pick it up and she's going to give it to me. It's not her fault if I'm busy and it takes longer than an hour to get back to you. And if it's urgent, I say, tell her this is really urgent, and she'll do everything she can to get my attention and get back to me. I've told her, she and I've worked together for 7 years, she is the only person I can spend 40 hours a week sitting in the same room with and not want to kill her. I don't have that sort of personality. I get irritable with my children, my husband, my dog, my horse. Renee, 40 hours a week, we're good. So if you need to get a message to me, she's the fastest person. Yes, she's probably going to call you back. But at least in my office, she knows what she's doing. And she knows how to answer. And she's very well trained. When she can't answer, she'll ask me again. So I also suggest if you have 2 or 3 questions, ask them up front, because then we're not going to be playing phone tag all day. I'd love to call you back. I really would. I would love to have 40 hours in every single day. My husband, though, accuses me of being a little bit of an overachiever, and if I had 40 hours, I'd stuff him with something else, so maybe it's good that I get limited. But that's how you get a hold of somebody in my office. Ask at your doctor's office, hey, what's the best way to get you a message between visits? How do I get a hold of your nurse? How does this work? I'll tell you, using the online portal, we have an email system that is secure, so I don't have to worry about somebody hacking into my Gmail and finding out about your urinary incontinence and your tripping and what supplies you're going to need for next Tuesday's trip across the country. If you put that into an email in my portal, I get it personally. You get a response from me as quickly as I can get to it. It also has the added benefit, if you're asking kind of a question I need to think about for a minute, I don't look stupid on the phone. I don't go, I go, at the email, go see a patient, come back, think about it, and go, this is how I want to answer that question. So you get a well thought out response from me personally, and I answer most of those within that business day. So that's a really good way at my office to get a hold of me. So not every doctor is going to have the same system, but asking, hey, how do I get a hold of you or your staff? Or if I have an urgent need, how does that get relayed? How can I get in there? Anytime somebody asks me, I give them a much shorter version of that spiel. You need to ask me a question, go on our portal, email me. If you need to get a hold of Renee, option 4. If If you have a question about your meds or your tests, option 4. You need to know what time of day it is, option 4. Renee does everything, I swear. Keeps me sane. It's a really good idea. So now it's our turn to chat. What sorts of challenges, limitations, what tips have you noticed? Now, you are not allowed to tell me about how Dr. Hormel's nurse doesn't return phone calls, because I know she does. You're not allowed to tell me about the challenges with, and by physician's name, just like I'm not going to call any of you all out. So let's just talk in general. What are some things that you found are more difficult? What kinds of advice do you need? And what kind of tips have helped you survive getting a hold of your doctor and improving that communication?
What are some symptoms of C-spine injury? Like you've got more plaques showing up in your C-spine.
So asking about C-spine plaques, I'll tell you what, can I answer that in one of our other sections? Because I do have some information for you about that. Is that cool? All right, awesome. Ask me again if I look like I'm going to forget, because my memory shot. Yes?
You have a doctor's office, and you really love the doctor, but you think the office staff, someone in the office staff is playing doctor and not getting the information to the doctor. Do doctors generally want to know they have someone like that in their staff?
So do doctors generally want to know if you think that somebody on their staff is playing doctor instead of asking the doctor for advice? I suspect they should if they don't, because the doctor is medically responsible legally for the advice that comes out of their office. And so my staff are very carefully trained, and only 2 or 3 times over the years have I caught them giving advice that they shouldn't have. And I tell them, any of you are smart enough to go to medical school, and I will totally support you if you decide to quit, leave me, and go to medical school, but until you do, this kind of question has to come to me, and here's why. So I retrain my staff if I ever catch anything, and I'm telling you, I've been with them for a long time. 3 times have there been issues. So even the best of them will sometimes anticipate what I'm going to say, and it might or might not be correct. So it might just be an outlier. Maybe that doesn't happen often at that office. Maybe this doctor knows that they need to keep an eye on this person, but if you never hear back, you don't know. So you might just briefly describe the situation and say, I got the sense that this didn't come from you, and I just wanted you to be aware and express that concern.
I'm thinking about moving all my meds from my neurologist to my GP, just so I don't have to go like 2 places all the time. So would that be a good idea, or should I keep them separated? Like your baclofen and your gabapentin and all my MS meds? Or should I move them on to my general practice doctor, or should I keep it?
Can you reiterate?
So good question. What you're asking is basically, how do I make things simpler? So do you move your MS medications to your general practitioner, or do you have to leave them separate? And this is a question with an answer that has some nuance to it. Essentially, if they're medications that a general practitioner often uses and they are stable and don't require adjustment and management, some general practitioners may be perfectly happy to take over those medicines. You gave 2 perfect examples. Gabapentin, primary care physicians use that all the time for a lot of different things. Baclofen doesn't have any really downside, doesn't need to be monitored, doesn't have any major danger associated with it. Lots of primary care docs are going to be perfectly happy with that. Here's where you could run into trouble with that. Let's say that you go to see your neurologist after you've switched over your baclofen, and you say, I'm having more spasticity. And now the neurologist is going to say, oh, well, we could increase your baclofen. Now you've got 2 practitioners using the same medicine. If you say, no, that's okay, my regular doctor prescribes it, I'll ask him to increase it, now you've created a potential glitch in the communication between the doctors. So it just kind of depends. If you've had really stable medicines and nothing's changed in a really long time, that may work. Other times it may not work as well, and predicting that is really the key. So if you figure out how to predict the future, totally let me in on that. That would be awesome. But if you've had changes or you're noticing more trouble, be prepared for one doctor to take it back over again. You're right, though. It's a lot easier to get the pharmacy to refill prescriptions from one doctor than a whole bunch of doctors. MS medications often need to be managed. And so MS medications don't lend themselves very well to a primary care doc. And no primary care doc is likely to be excited about prescribing your beta-seron or your Gilenya. And none of them can prescribe your Tysabri or your Lemtrada. So there will be some limitations to what they can and cannot do. You can certainly ask, but keep in mind those potential sticky points. Any other questions about that before we go on to disease-modifying therapies?
I am famous for, I just can't figure out where to write things down. So you have 6 months, you have 6 months in between your visits to your doctor, right? And so things happen in those 6 months. And I don't remember to write things down as they happen. So you go into your doctor 6 months later, and how do you feel when you go into your doctor? Probably fine. But in those 6 months, stuff probably happened. And sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't. And it's trying to figure out where to put that stuff and what I remember and what I don't remember. And I don't know if you have any tips for how to start getting a hold of that and where to put it. And I'm still struggling with that.
So there are a couple of things that I've seen folks do. One is that if you have a best friend, a spouse, an adult child, if you've got somebody who knows, bring them with you. If you don't, think of something you always have with you that you could take notes on. All right? Your phone. A little pad of paper. They make these little pads of paper about yay big that you can throw into a purse, a wallet. You can put it with your keys. Anything like that that's always with you. And when you think of something, put it down. Now, therein lies the problem, right? Because if you don't think of it, you don't put it down. You really can't get around that. That just is what it is. It would be like saying, I really wish I had brown eyes, but I don't. It's just kind of something that's hard to work around. But in looking for a way to keep something in the right spot, so I always joke with folks, my mom's a sticky note fiend. I think she keeps 3M afloat all by herself because she has a fantastic memory, but she's very non-confident in her fantastic memory. So she's got sticky notes all over the dang place. You go into her bathroom to like talk to her in the morning, she's brushing her teeth between sticky notes, just everywhere. It's nuts. And they're the same sticky notes that are in the kitchen. That's her system. It works for her. Sticky notes, if they go out of business, my mom's done. I get sticky notes. I can't remember where I put them. I find them in weird places. 3 months later, I'd be like, oh, I was supposed to take the dog to the vet that day. That stinks. You know, sticky notes aren't my thing. If I really need to get something done, I put it on my phone. I put it in my little notes section or I put it into my calendar. Why? Because I always, always, always have my phone with me, but I don't always have a sticky note pad. So those are some tips. It's not perfect, and really the ideal would be make your memory better, but until we know how to do that, those would be some ideas that I've seen some folks do.
Back when I last talked to you, you mentioned when switching your neurologist because A, he leaves town, he retired or whatever. You mentioned it'd be good to bring your diagnosis notes of when you were diagnosed. In my case, they're over 22 years old. Do I need to go to the record room and bring those or have them sent to you? Or if I've been managed for 22 years, I've got my original MRI, but do you need my evoked potential, my spinal tap information? Would that be needed as well?
So transferring care to a new neurologist for a long-standing condition, and this will apply to anything. All right, so this is MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, whatever. If the records are available, bring the initial diagnosis the last year's worth of treatment, and any scans you can get your hands on, but especially the most recent. Now, some of those records aren't available, or it would take an act of Congress to get them. If you had a test or a record done more than 7 years ago by law, it can be destroyed, and quite frankly, probably has been. So there's really no point, unless you already have your hands on those records, there's really no point in going and digging them up. They don't exist. And if they do, the chances you're going to find them are so small, there's just not much point. So in that case, okay, we can't have the original stuff, last year's worth of notes, any scans you have on hand, the actual CDs. I still have people bring me in films every once in a while. I have an old-fashioned light box in my office until we get a good bit further out from using that light box. That thing's just going to hang on my wall. It's my artwork. And I guess after it's done, I'll just put, I don't know, glass pictures up on it or something, just to enjoy the history of the film. That's what you really, really need. And anything you can bring with you is important. Again, don't assume that the other doctor's office knew what I needed. There are other doctors, sure, but they don't always know what I need, and everybody has a tendency to say, oh, you can get that later. Well, sometimes that means you have to wait to actually get some answers to your questions because I don't know the whole story. So if it still exists, bring it. If it doesn't, you can't do anything about it, let it go.
Not so much a question as just kind of a statement. I've been coming to the Roanoke group for about 5 or 6 years now, and this group is very big on self-advocacy and having a good time. The things that she just talked about, I cannot stress to you enough. That is self-advocacy. Do it. I use my cell phone. Figure out what works for you. Write it down. Bring it to the office. You cannot be a better advocate for yourself than doing just that, being prepared when you go to the doctor. And that's the end of my statement. And this lady over here had a question.
I'm going to get there next. Yeah, I have something to share with all of you. We have a Land of MS communication tool that we had our medical advisory board put together. We share this all over the place, and I forgot to actually bring the paperwork on it today. They put together something that for every single patient, if they fill this out in advance of their appointment, you can have everything and anything concerning multiple sclerosis put down on that sheet of paper, so that way when you go to your appointment, you give it to the desk when you arrive, they put it in your file or the folder, so that way when the neurologist or nurse practitioner is seeing you, that they see everything it is that you've been feeling the last days, months, weeks, whatever it is. And the clinician then opens up the file and says, wow, here's everything that's wrong with them. This appointment's going to be great because I know that they're going to leave and everything's going to get answered. So we do have that available on our website, all right? And it's fillable on the website. So that way if you can't write, you could fill it in. If you can, type at a keyboard, or you could call our office and we'll send you the paperwork for it so you could keep copies in your own home. That's all I'm trying to say.
That's a great tool. Another one that just occurred to me, one of my patients just calls and says, I want to discuss this at my next appointment. And we get phone calls at all crazy hours of the night. This is the one upside to a phone tree. You can leave us a phone message at 2 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, doesn't matter. And one of my patients actually does call and say, before I forget, I want to make sure we go through this. It goes into my medical system as a phone message, and on this patient's chart, I know that he does this, and I go through every single phone message from the last visit to go over those concerns, and some of them may be 4 months old. So that's another way. If you don't have a great memory, just pick up your phone, leave me a message, and just say, hey, FYI, I'd like to go over this, don't want to forget.
Hi, my question is with the insurance cards. I just learned last week that my United Healthcare through the Social Security funds. Hold on, but Medicare. It's all Medicare. United Healthcare is not doing the doctor anymore. They have to have a contract to renew their insurance card thingy. I have to pay full price now to go to my emotional care. That's where this is coming from. They're not honoring that. And I don't know about my doctor or anything like that, but they're not honoring the insurance cards or for people with emotional care. They're not helping that much anymore.
That is correct. There is a specific kind, and my front desk actually knows when we see those, and we tell people this is not a medical card. This does not get you in here. This is only for emotional care. There are different programs, and that's one program, and it is very limited in its scope. We had an issue with a patient who brought us what looked like a medical card, and it was a prescription benefit card, but the way it was worded, we didn't catch it. We hadn't seen one of those before. So yeah, they're tricky. They use different terms than what we use. They used to have, co-pays and deductibles, and now there's co-insurance, and I still don't know what the heck co-insurance is. How's that different than a friggin' co-pay? I mean, come on, guys. It's as though the insurance companies are trying to make it so complicated that they can sort of wiggle us all out of money. Because I get it too. Those turkeys at United were paying me less than Medicaid, and I had to personally find that and call them on it. I might have threatened to turn them into the feds for paying me less than Medicaid, and now they pay me more. But yeah, there are little ins and outs. I wish I had better tips for you on how to catch it. I don't have medical insurance. I can't afford it. oh, the irony. But when I did, I would give my card. I'd read my insurance benefits, and I'd give my card to the front desk anywhere I went, and I said, heck if I know what they're going to pay. You send me a bill for the difference. I'm a doctor, and I can't read those things. On my own insurance, they're nuts. It's awful. So I'm sympathizing with you here, but I don't have some great ideas, because it's not like, oh, well, if you just do this, you'll be fine. They'll change the rules next year. It's very frustrating. We know that in my office, and we're the advocate for you. So if you say, gosh, I don't know if my insurance is going to pay for this, we say, we'll find out, because we know how to do it. Well, I don't know if they're going to pay for this prescription. I got to write the prescription, send it to your pharmacy, and have your pharmacist try to fill it before any of us are going to know how much your insurance pays. You can't call them and find out how much they're going to pay. Nuts, right? You need a test done. You be prepared to give them the ICD-10 code. You be prepared to give them the name, address, phone number, and date of the hospital where you're going to do the test, and the CPT code. And if you knew half of the information that I just gave you, then you might get the information on whether or not they're going to cover your MRI. What really happens is we put all of that information in, and then they kick back an authorization number that comes back with the caveat that an authorization number may or may not actually get the test paid for. I would think if they've authorized it, that means they're going to pay for it. Not so, my friends. So most of the time, we can help you go through that. You do not have to do it on your own. We will save you a ton of time and heartache if you just let us go through the painfully slow and aggravating challenges and the channels that need to be gone through. We'll get back to you. We will tell you what they told us that they're going to pay for. But yes, there are certain cards. Medicaid will change in Virginia which Medicaid you have and not tell you. That's a fun one. Then suddenly your doctor's visit isn't paid for. So keep on track of those guys.
Before you go on to the DMTs, can you take her question? And
I was going to talk about her question, if it's okay, when we got into the section about accessing all areas of your health. Is that all right? Because I think it fits under that category. And it was about C-spine, signs of C-spine disease.
She's got a different one.
Oh, well then absolutely. Bring it on.
Okay, Dr. Kramer, thank you for taking another question from me. How does one go about changing neurologists if you feel like your current neurologist, you're just not communicating very well?
So here's the thing. If a physician no longer feels that they can or wants to take care of you for whatever reason, we have a process we go through. We actually have to write you a formal letter, and we send it to you by certified mail, and it's this whole big thing. If you want to change neurologists, you just do it. That's it. You call up the new neurologist, you ask them how you get in with the office, you find out what information they need, what referral they need, if any, and then you have the referral done, and then you send your old neurologist a note and just, please forward my records to so-and-so. you don't actually have to give the old neurologist any kind of a reason.
Who does the referral then? Who writes it?
Another physician, so usually a primary care physician. It's usually a primary care doc that would do that. So you'd go to your primary care doc and say, you know, I really would like another opinion. I'd like to change doctors. Your primary care physician doesn't even really need to know unless you feel like maybe they need to know about doctors that they refer to, but you don't have to really say anything. You can just say, I want another opinion and I'd like you to refer me to X and so or somebody that you think is really good. And then they'll gather records. One good thing to do would be to write a letter that says, I, your name, date of birth, would like these records forwarded, and you have to be very specific about what dates. So you would say original diagnosis, labs, MRIs, office notes from 2002, and also the last year's worth of office notes, MRI results, lab results forwarded to this person, and then your signature and the date. And that makes it all official.
May I ask a question? I'm running into the same problem as she is. My psychiatrist, they paid for all of his bill when I was in the hospital 2 months. And now they're saying he's out of network. Well, how come that bill was paid? That's what made me think he was in my network.
Who knows? The question was, I saw a doctor in the hospital, they paid for everything. I went to follow up with the doctor thinking that because the insurance company paid for everything, that meant the doctor was in network, and now they're saying the doctor's out of network. How do I know? And the answer was, I have no idea. So this is a tricky point. Doctors will fall in and out of network, and sometimes the insurance company is absolutely 100% incorrect. So we've had insurance companies tell patients that I'm out of network when I'm not. And I was told that I was going to be out of network when I wasn't. So these insurance companies don't really know what they're doing all the time. I know, shocking.
So you just think you should call your doctor and try to work with the girl at the reception?
You actually have to call the insurance before you see a new doctor in a new context and say, who is in network? Because if they say I'm out of network, even though I say I'm in network, you may be on the hook for that bill. I don't get to make the decision because I'm not the one that holds the money bags. So the guy who owns the money bags is always in charge, right? Whether or not they make any sense and whether or not they're sane. So call them, find out who's on their current in-network list. Sometimes doctors will be covered because they're under the hospital, and the hospital is in network. Sometimes I've actually had patients go to a hospital, see an out-of-network doctor, and they'll pay for everything in the hospital except the doctor, just for kicks and grins. So this section, I could probably spend a couple of weeks training medical students and residents on disease-modifying therapies. So here's what I'm going to do instead. We're going to go through the different categories, and I'm just going to stop and mostly take questions. There are 15 on the market FDA-approved medications that modify the disease of MS. Now, these are not symptomatic medications. These are not medicines that are going to help your spasticity or make your memory better or improve your vision. They modify the underlying disease by slowing it down. The vast majority of these medications are for relapsing MS, not for any form of progressive MS. So when you see on these slides, it's going to just kind of bullet points give you the highlights. One of the highlights is going to be, what does it do? What's its benefit? And most of it you're going to see are decreasing relapses and new lesions, which is what we measure in relapsing MS. All right? So here's what we got. We've got Copaxone, Glatopa, Rebif, Avonex, Plegridy, Betaseron, Extavia, Tecfidera, Gilenya, Albagia, Zinbrida, Tysabri, Lemtrada, Ocrevus, and Novantrone. Any questions? I have a prompter here. Copaxone. I put /Glatopa ? Because the insurance companies have decided that Glatopa is a generic for Copaxone, and I beg to differ. In fact, I demand to differ. It is made through a different process, and Glatopa did not go through the rigorous FDA standards required to show that it actually works, and I refuse to write a prescription for it. And Renee, my medical assistant, has never lost that fight. Love her. So with Copaxone, this is a subcutaneous every day to 3 times a week injection. It switches activated T lymphocytes to anti-inflammatory, so it calms down the immune system. It does not work in the brain or spinal cord, it works in the bloodstream itself. Major side effects, not the only side effects, include flushing, actual necrosis of subcutaneous tissue. If you could target this, this would be like a sweet way of getting rid of those little fat pads you don't like, but instead it looks like a nasty case of cellulitis. It's an under the skin scar. Large injection site reactions. I've seen them as big as dinner plates, where people will inject and get these big, huge reactions that go all the way around the leg or the arm. The effectiveness against placebo, people taking fake shots, is 30% decrease in new lesions and relapses. Interferons, there's a whole mess of interferons. There's beta-seron and Extavia, which are the exact same medication made in, I'm told, the same plant, but just marketed out of different doors. Rebif, Avonex, and Plegridy are all the same molecule, but given in different ways at different frequencies. All of the interferons work about 30% compared to taking nothing, and all of them can cause flu-like problems, injection site reactions, and can mess with your cell counts and your liver. Zinbrida is another injection, self-injectable, subcutaneous once a month. These newer medications are antibodies, and antibodies have different functions. They can block a receptor, they can get in there and mark a cell for destruction. This one marks certain receptors that trigger duplication of more natural killer cells. Did you know that part of your body are natural killers? They are. They go in and they basically kill cells that have shown signs of infection. So if those natural killer cells identify your brain and say, oh, that looks infected to me, it's going to kill brain tissue. It's going to kill spinal cord tissue. And Zinbrida works by blocking the duplication of those cells. The biggest problem with Zinbrida is liver, 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 and liver. Once a month you get your liver checked. It can cause some autoimmune problems and that sort of a thing because it's an antibody. You're triggering your immune system in a really weird way. It works. It is a study that is really interesting because when it showed benefit over Avonex, people on Avonex did better than most people on Avonex. So how effective is it compared to some of the other medications? We don't know. This is why we always say don't compare. If I say 54% risk reduction in relapses compared to Avonex, that doesn't mean it's 50% better than Rebif. You can't compare it that way because the old studies on Rebif showed that Avonex was only about 30%. So the numbers can't be really compared. There are 3 orals. Tecfidera is one of them. It's a twice-a-day oral. It decreases inflammation kind of in general. Its exact mechanism is not known. I put the diarrhea in bold because even in the product information it says may cause life-altering diarrhea. And if you are a patient of mine, you have a 90% chance of life-altering diarrhea. I'm not kidding. I joke with people that if they want to come see me, I won't put them on Tecfidera because of the diarrhea. That's not entirely true. But I will send them over to another doctor in town who doesn't get the diarrhea from it. Because he and I have talked about this, and he thinks it's crazy I've got a 90%, and so I joked with him, I'll just send all of my patients for Tecfidera to you, and you can send them back once you get them settled. We don't actually do that. Why I get 90%, I don't know. It's not that high for most practices. It's about 50%, but it's bad. Flushing, just kind of like a hot flash, it affects blood cell counts, and it may affect the liver. Works about 50% compared to placebo. Albagio blocks an enzyme that allows T cells to duplicate themselves. So there's a lot less overactive T cells. The T cells still work, but it can reactivate tuberculosis, damage the liver, and damage unborn babies. 50% fewer new lesions, relapses, and it also slows disability progression. Gilenya is the 3rd oral medication, although it was the first one out. It hides T cells from the circulation, so it gets them stuck in the lymph nodes so they can't get out into the blood where they do most of their work. It can damage the liver, lower blood cell counts, increase infections, cause blindness, trouble breathing, high blood pressure, and activate the JC virus's PML. Good grief, why would we use this stuff? It decreases, it's amazing. It's amazing in how effective it is. And if it didn't have all of these issues, would be a really, really good choice. 50% fewer new lesions and relapses over 10 years of data. Most of the time when I tell you these studies, they're over a year. They're over 2 years. This one was studied over 10 years and really works. There are infusions, Tysabri, every 4 weeks. What it does is it binds to immune cells. It's an antibody that binds to immune cells so that they cannot get into the brain and spinal cord. So they get stuck in the bloodstream. They still work, but they can't get into the brain or spinal cord to cause inflammation. Now the good news is that means that those T cells are not attacking the brain. The bad news is they're not taking care of infections that can happen in the brain, like the JC virus activating as PML. It can also cause liver damage. Very good data, 66% fewer new lesions, relapses, and it does slow disability progression. Lemtrada is a twice-in-a-lifetime infusion ? You can go up to once a year after that if you're having new lesions, relapses, or new symptoms. What it does is it binds to fully grown lymphocytes and marks them for destruction in the bloodstream. So basically, it tags these things so the rest of your immune system attacks and destroys them. What that does is you're activating your immune system, and sometimes it'll get activated against other things. So we have to do blood work once a month to make sure we have not triggered your immune system in the wrong way to cause it to attack your kidneys or your platelets or your liver or your thyroid. You have to continue these blood tests every month for 4 years after your last infusion because of this risk. All of these things are treatable, but they're dangerous if you miss them. Can also reactivate melanoma. The immune system actually plays a role in knocking down melanoma, so that if you have knocked down your immune system successfully, you have a higher risk of melanoma, so you need to get skin checks. 67% fewer relapses and slows disability progression. It is more effective by far than Rebif, and it may not require ongoing therapy after year 2. Some people actually regain functions that they have not had before for a long time in the 2nd or 3rd year after treatment. So they may be able to lift up their foot that they haven't moved for 15 years, or their leg may stop dragging, or their urinary symptoms may get better, or they may have more energy that they've never had before. Typically that happens after the 2nd infusion, but can be a benefit later on. And this is pretty impressive data, statistically significant, but it's not a guarantee. Ocrevus is an every 6-month infusion. This is an antibody that targets certain B cells for destruction. So Lemtrada targets the T cells. The Ocrevus targets B cells for destruction. It can activate hepatitis B, might slightly increase the breast cancer risk. People are more prone to virus and upper respiratory infections, and it may reactivate JC virus's PML. We kind of expect that it will, but so far it's only reactivated JC virus in somebody who came off from Tysabri, did what we consider an appropriate washout of Tysabri over 2 months, and then started Ocrevus, and the PML developed. 1 case so far, and infusion reactions can be a problem. Some people get fevers, itchy, sore throats, scratchy throats, headaches, that kind of thing. Compared with Avonex, 47% relative risk reduction in relapses and 96% fewer lesions. Compared with Avonex, which also decreases lesions. This stuff's pretty strong. It slows the progression of disability in patients with both relapsing and primary progressive MS. And its indication for primary progressive MS is very, very exciting because we really don't have any other safe alternatives for primary progressive MS. Does it have a future for secondary progressive MS? No data yet, but we're all keeping our fingers crossed and are very hopeful. The last one is Novantrone. Novantrone used to be used back when I was a kid, and this stuff permanently damages the heart. So this is a dangerous medication that in a lifetime you can only have so much. So you can't have a course of Novantrone and then 30 years later do it again. That's how permanent the damage is. The damage is so permanent that before you get your next infusion of Novantrone, you have to have a special scan of your heart to make sure that you have not already had too much heart damage before you go on. So we considered this sort of the Hail Mary pass. These were folks with progressive MS that were just, I mean, the sort of example patient that I cite was a man I met 16 years ago in Denver who went from construction worker to urinary catheter in a wheelchair in a nursing home in 9 months. That's the last person I put on Novantrone because we sort of said, heart, secondary to all of this, if we damage your heart, oh well, maybe we've saved you some function. And it did. It really slowed down his trajectory. He was going downhill in a 6-month trajectory and it went to 9 months and then stabilized. He then moved out of the area and I don't know what happened to him after that, but he can never have Novantrone again. Because of its danger, it's not often used. It really isn't. That's what I had on the DMTs, kind of some bullet points. What questions did you all have on those therapies?
Hi, what exactly is an interferon?
An interferon is a chemical that your body makes when it is fighting viruses. So you know how when you get the flu, you get fluey? That's the interferon. Your body makes it. And there are different interferons. There's interferon alpha and there's interferon beta. And we are capitalizing on the anti-inflammatory effects of the interferon as a purified injection of just interferon. And what it does is it essentially blocks the immune cells from getting into the brain and spinal cord. That's one of its effects.
Can your MS be treated naturally, like with supplements, essential oils, that type of thing, or do you have to have a DMD?
The answer is we have no data. So remember what physicians do. We give you medical information. We're data-driven people where there is evidence. There is no evidence whatsoever, one way or the other, that essential oils do anything for the disease itself. There's no evidence one way or the other that, for example, vitamin C does anything. There is some preliminary evidence that vitamin D may slow down lesions, and there is some preliminary evidence that alpha lipoic acid may help, but there's nothing conclusive. So hang on, how come nobody does a double-blinded, placebo-controlled 2-year-long trial of vitamin D versus placebo? There's no profit to be made off from selling vitamin D. There's no downside to taking vitamin D. There's nobody who's going to pay to find out if vitamin D helps by spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and thousands of hours of people's time to sort this out. So why not just take the vitamin D? Here's the problem. We're never going to know if vitamin D is better or as good as Avonex or Rebif. That's really the standard. When you go into a clinical trial, you have to prove that your medication, as the pharmaceutical company, you have to prove that your medication is as good as or better than the standard of care. So even if vitamin D helps some, you'd have to then be able to pay for all of the medications and yada, 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 get thousands of patients. It's very difficult to prove it. So for a lot of reasons we may never know, but because we don't know that, as a physician who gives evidence-based medicine, it is my recommendation that you treat with your supplements along with a standard known therapy that we know works. That may not be your treatment philosophy, but as a physician, it's my job to tell you what we know and what we don't know.
Neurologists, say January I had my MRI, there's 300 slices. The 25, the 75, and 150 slice showed a lesion. The next time they divide the lesions and they don't do that slice in February, then you tell on that MRI that no lesions are apparent. because they don't do the same slice in the same location. So how can you rely on one MRI over another?
You don't. So you use all of the information available. Remember, physicians are trained as scientists. We all have a background in chemistry and biology and experimental science. So if I know that one film shows one lesion and another film shows no lesions, what do I do with that? Well, it still does not, one lesion does not alone meet the criteria for multiple sclerosis. So I don't really rely on one versus the other, but I have to know the limitations of my test. And the limitations of my test with an MRI is that especially a small lesion can be missed depending on how you're in the scanner. So I would assume that a lesion is probably still there, but it's small, and what's more important from the point of view of multiple sclerosis is that it hasn't been joined by a whole lot more lesions that would meet the criteria. So that's how sort of the scientific method interprets that kind of information, because you're exactly right. A smaller lesion, if you cut it this way, think about if you're cutting a cucumber, right? If you cut the cucumber long way, it looks huge. If you cut the cucumber side to side, it just looks like a little dot. And it depends on how you slice the lesion. And if you go through a slice of bread and you miss the raisin, you might not see the raisin on either side. Same thing with an MRI. When the slices are done, if they don't catch that lesion, there is a margin of error of the MRI. Most MS lesions, though, in order to meet the criteria, show up on more than one slice because they are very much larger than the size of the slices. So that's another reason why a small lesion wouldn't necessarily be considered as diagnostic by itself of multiple sclerosis.
I have a question of all our medications that we have different market, meaning or doing different things to the blood or the B cells and T cells. Why can't we have a blood work on an MS patient and be more matched to the different drugs that are out there available, instead of just, here, we'll start you on Avonex or Capacin, or just at the basics? Can that medication be more matched somehow for certain patients?
So people are working on that. They're looking at things that are called biomarkers to see if we can predict, first of all, MS before it starts, but also to see if different medications may go along with different biomarkers. Nothing matches yet. They've been doing this since I was a little baby neurologist, and I'm not a baby neurologist anymore. Nobody's found it. So it's too individual is what it looks like, or we just haven't stumbled across it yet.
So how long would you say, like I've been on Tysabri for almost 8 years, where back in the day you were only supposed to be on it 2 years. Then they said, okay, now you can be on it for however long. But then, you stand the risk of the JC virus, which I'm still negative, and then the PML. But when will you decide enough is enough so you don't run into a risk? You understand? So
if we're talking about the specific risk of PML with Tysabri, what you are experiencing firsthand is the expansion of the understanding and the knowledge of Tysabri and Tysabri's ability to bring out the JC virus as PML. So at first we knew that 1 out of 1,000 people got PML. That's it. That's all we knew. 1 out of 1,000. Then we learned that it was at a peak around 2 years. Aha, we'll take them off before they get to 2 years. Some people started saying take them off at 2 years, put them on Copaxone for 6 months, put them back on Tysabri, reboots the immune system. No data for that. We have no idea if that works. Then they said, well, let's do a study and see how many people really carry the JC virus. Well, it was more than we thought. We thought it was 50%. It's probably more like 85%. Then they started sorting out, okay, who's getting PML? The titer, the amount of antibody that your body is making against the JC virus actually turned out to be a really good predictor of who was going to get PML and who wasn't. The risk of PML on Tysabri with a negative titer is about 1 in 10,000, period, across the board. If your titer is high, considered high titer, after 2 years, your risk is 1 in 115. If it's low titer, it's 1 out of 3,300 before the 2-year mark. So we've actually developed charts that we can say, where are you and who are you, and there's your risk. So what you've experienced is the expansion of the data and the knowledge. You cannot apply any of that data and knowledge that we've gotten from Tysabri to any of the other medications. Gilenya, for example, has caused PML in people who are JC virus negative, who have normal lymphocyte counts, who have low titers, who have been on the medication for 8 months. So Gilenya is too much of a scatter. There's no pattern to it yet. Hopefully we'll eventually be able to predict. So when do you pull the plug on Tysabri? When a 1 out of 10,000 risk with a persistent negative titer makes you nervous, or you're having advanced disease that you don't expect, new lesions and new exacerbations. That's when you'd pull the plug on Tysabri.
Does Carillion's MRI measure brain atrophy very well? And how much does brain atrophy enter into a neurologist considering the advancement of MS?
No, Carillion's MRI is not set up with the research software to measure atrophy. So what you get is the radiologist may look at it and say, looks atrophied to me. It's kind of it looks like about 60 people in the room, right? Give or take is basically that kind of read. How much does brain atrophy play a role in how we consider how well your medication is working? Not much, and here's why. It's not really studied, so I don't have a way of saying Albagio should not be causing brain atrophy, therefore if you have brain atrophy, we should bring you off Albagio. It's not one of the markers that we use because it's not reliable enough in the progression of MS to use it as something that we observe. So instead we use how many new lesions, how many new exacerbations, and how much more disability are you having on the medication, because these are the things, the data points that we have to measure how well your medication is working. For now. We'll probably learn more over the next 10, 15 years. So for now, that's what we use.
How do us as patients and you as a doctor decide what medication would be the best risk, so to speak, to use, or the best bet, or how do you do that?
We draw names out of a hat. This is a very, very individual conversation. And it is different with every patient that I talk with. And it has to be done usually in a much shorter period of time than any of us would like for it to be done. But it goes a little something like this. You have MS. I'm going to give you some information to read about it. And we need to come up with a medication to help slow it down. This is important. I've learned in my practice that once I say you have MS, everything I say after that sounds like wah, 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 okay? So what I then do is I say, let's go back to something you do know, all right? There are treatments. We can slow this down. We got this. We can, by treating it now, give you a better chance of not having to worry about it 10, 15, 20 years from now, all right? And if I've got your attention at that point, and I'm not seeing on your face that I still sound like wah, 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 then I say, let me tell you in general what's available for treatments. We have shots that you give yourself, and if the person immediately looks like they're going to vomit, the shots are off the table. See, I told you I'm not a good mind reader, but I'm halfway decent at body language. Some people, you say shots, go, I'm diabetic, who cares? Go on, keep going. I say, we've got orals, you can take them at home. They've all got side effects. I know what other medications you take, and I know what other medical problems you have. So for example, if I know that you have diabetes, I may not choose Gilenya for you because Gilenya plus diabetes increases the risk of macular degeneration, and neither you nor I want you to go blind. I may know, for example, that you already have horrible diarrhea from your Crohn's disease, and Tecfidera, you and I are not going to be good friends. I may know that you're a young woman and you want to have children, and Albaggio may not be a good choice. So I've already mentally gone through the 15 options, and I've thrown some out because I already know what medical problems you have. So let's say, for the sake of argument, I'm down to a list of 12 because I know what other medical problems you have, and then you just recoiled when I said shots, so now you're down to 4 options. You have really, really aggressive disease, so I've taken you down to 3 options, and you don't want to take anything that has a chance of giving you PML, so there's your option, right? In another person, the conversation's completely different. Maybe you don't want to be on anything that's been out in less than 5 years because you've read that we learn more about these medications and there can be more risks. Well, I might say, hey, you know, I respect that completely, but there is a medicine that's been out more recently that you need to consider for this reason, this reason, this reason, and you may tell me I'm crazy. That's cool. We're both part of this conversation. There are other options. So how that decision is made is very, very individual, and I wish I could videotape this, except that I don't think there's anybody in their right mind who would let me videotape that conversation. And even if they did, I think it'd be too personal. So I almost need to come up with a script to show you what it looks like. But it is very different. One person said to me one time, well, how does somebody who's newly diagnosed know what they want? I said, well, shoot, they hardly know what MS is. So I kind of guide them. What we used to do back in the day when I was a baby neurologist, there were 4 treatments for MS. Actually, there were 3, and then we were totally stoked to have a 4th, which was basically the same as the other 3, but never mind. And we would give them kits, and we'd say, all right, read your kits and come back. And they'd walk out of the office looking like, keep in mind, I don't read minds, I read body language, and I watched 2 or 3 people walk out of my office with their eyes as big as saucers, sort of carrying this stack I'd given them, and I said, you know, this is really not the best way to do it. We need to trim this down. All right, look, Avonex and Rebif are the same thing. You like once a week or you like 3 times a week? Your call. Subcutaneous IM. Okay, throw away one of them. So there are different ways of trimming down the list so that you end up with 2 or 3 options that are a good choice for you. I don't have to take the medicine. For some of y'all, I would take it for you if I could. I really would. I can't. It doesn't do you any good if I take it. So I don't make the choice for me. We make it for you.
I have relaxing emitting MS since about 1992, and under pretty well good control. But like this morning, I rounded the corner and I ran into someone else, and I fell on my butt. Well, no problem to me. It was not a major problem, but however, the people in the office now view me a fall risk. So I'm now put in a different category, and they had to study me and you know, do general tests, and now I'm put under their fall risk. What do I do with that?
You mean your office at where you work?
Yes.
Okay, Springs, the Assisted Living Center.
Oh, in an assisted living. I got you. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do. And the reason is that they are under very strict guidelines medically and through Medicare to stratify people with different kinds of risks. And they can get away with not stratifying you until there's been a problem, but once there's a problem, there's nothing they can do about it. What do you do if work is worried about your diagnosis of MS? This is always an interesting one and kind of an extension of what you just asked, because there are different rules at work. Well, some people don't tell their they tell their doctors they have MS. They don't tell their work that they have MS because you have no idea what they know, think they know, Googled on the internet last night. You have no idea what they're going to do with that information. I had a patient years ago when he revealed to his work that he had MS. They basically told him that they basically fired him because they knew that he was going to die early and would be a liability to them. And I was like, what the heck just happened there? So I wrote him a love letter to take back to his work. And they rehired him after some lawyers got involved. But essentially, this was kind of in the early days of the ADA. So he didn't have much of a case. Some employers in my area, we've learned, are really, really good with accommodations, and some of them don't tell your employer until the day you file for disability. It becomes kind of a strategy. Because once they know, some employers are awesome and great, and some employers are not. And they are all working under the same laws, just how they interpret them, and their risk, and your job. So it's tricky. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
I had to renege on the last question because Suzanne has to have the last word.
Suzanne always gets the last word. We respect that.
Well, I got the feeling you were getting ready to wind up, and I think something's been missed that I promised somebody. You and I have had this discussion before. I feel like a pusher of drugs for fatigue, but it's a serious, serious problem for me, as it is for a lot of people. And in our hospitality room last night, we were talking a little bit, and I kind of promised Wayne that this would come up. Sorry, Wayne, put you on the spot, but I didn't know if you were going to get to that, but he's not being treated, and a lot of people aren't being treated for fatigue, and I just can't believe doctors aren't treating that. Could you give some ideas to people what can be done?
All of the treatments for MS-related fatigue are off-label. There are no FDA-approved treatments for MS-related fatigue. This ends up being a huge barrier to the treatment of MS-related fatigue. Because if Provigil works great for you, awesome. You get to chuck over $300 a month to pay for it, because your insurance can say, that's not FDA approved, and we don't have to. So what do we use for MS-related fatigue? There is a very short list of medications that have been proven in good studies to work. There's amantadine. There are activating antidepressants, including Zoloft, Wellbutrin, and Effexor. There's Provigil and its cousin Nuvigil, and then there are amphetamines. So Dexedrine, Adderall, Vyvanse, combinations of amphetamines. That's it. That's it. So if a patient comes in and says, oh, I've tried all of those, that's it. That's all we got. We don't have something stronger. So what do? Conserving energy, finding out what your minimum every day is, make sure you keep doing that. Listen to your body. When it says at 10 o'clock you're done, I'm really sorry, but you probably are. Don't borrow that from tomorrow. Avoid getting too hot. You guys know this stuff. Avoid getting out in the humidity. I have some patients in the summertime tell me, oh, well, I'm in the air conditioning all the time. You know, I can feel the heat and humidity in an air-conditioned room, and I promise you your MS can too. Like, I can tell in this freezing cold room, it is stinking humid. So even though you may feel like, well, I'm nice and cool, it's still humid, and some people are more sensitive to the humidity. Some of my MS patients aren't heat sensitive, they're cold sensitive. So if they get too cold, they have more of a problem. Now that's the less common, but I definitely hear that happening too. Make sure you're getting a good night's sleep. Oh, doc, I don't sleep at night. I know, none of us do. It stinks. If your body doesn't naturally go into sleep rhythms, there's not much we can do about that. It's something your brain does or it doesn't do, and MS brains don't do natural rhythms very well at all. So set yourself up for success. Do not watch television, get onto Facebook, look at a screen, do something exciting within an hour of going to bed. I'm not pointing anybody out, but I'm seeing some people getting pointed out over here. My husband told me when we first got married that he could not sleep at night. And when we got married and we moved in together and he brought the TV into the bedroom, I was like, the heck are you doing? He goes, oh, I watch TV before I go to bed. No, you don't. Get that thing out of here. That kid falls asleep within 5 minutes. Oh, he flops around and tosses and turns sometimes, but let me tell you, kid sleeps like a absolute dead guy sometimes. We quit watching TV, or I made him quit watching TV when he went to bed. He told me that he actually would turn on the TV, fall asleep with the TV on. I said, well, you're friggin' crazy. You're listening to the news all night long. No wonder you can't sleep. You must have nightmares too about what all the crazy people are doing in the world. We also discovered that he likes absolute perfect darkness. Well, you don't get that with your TV on. So that was something simple, just an example from a guy who just didn't have a neurologist for a wife. Sleeps great now. Some people have sleep apnea. If you've got sleep apnea even a little bit, you can say goodbye to your energy the next day. I don't care if you have MS or not. It'll also affect your cognition. So if you snore, if you wake up gasping for breath, if you're even a little overweight, you don't have to be super big. Or if you are brushing your teeth, this is actually a funny way to look at it, open your mouth and look at the back of your throat. If you can clearly see the whole back of your throat, you're at lower risk for sleep apnea than if your tonsils cover the back of your throat. You can check that yourself. The ENTs have numbers for it, like how big your tonsils are and all this other stuff. Okay? Or if you're soft palate, if you can't get your mouth open enough to actually see the back of your throat, you might be at higher risk. Things you wouldn't even think of. Little skinny people can have sleep apnea. It's not something that it's like a secret we don't let out. So making sure that you're getting as good a sleep that you can. If you have to take a nap in the afternoon and it is not socially or otherwise unacceptable for you to do so, go ahead, as long as it's not interfering with your sleep at night. If you find out that if you take a 2-hour nap, you toss and turn all night, but a 30-minute nap, you're good, set an alarm. So those are some things you can do about fatigue, and only some of them are actual medications. Now, to your point about me winding down, I got 2 more sections of this talk to go, but you guys are done eating. So I will not be even sort of offended if y'all just got up and said, have a good day, we're done. But I have 2 more sections I'm supposed to talk about here. We're only halfway done, people. Because I still have your question, don't worry, I haven't forgotten. All right, the next section that I was asked to talk about, and I wanted this to be more of a conversation because I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all conversation to be had here. And I've given a number of talks to you all about what a relapse is, how to recognize it, how a doctor, how the medical community defines it, how patients define it, how to identify a relapse. The second half of the question, though, was what is the importance of identifying a relapse and why is treatment important? So let me touch on that briefly and see if you have any questions about relapses. Why is it important to identify a relapse? Well, if you identify a relapse according to the way the medical research neurology community identifies a relapse, it is a set of new symptoms that last for at least 24 hours and are separated in time by at least a month from your last set of new symptoms. Why are we that picky about it? Because you certainly feel symptoms that don't last as long, that aren't separated from a year and might not be new. Because those are the relapses that we use in research because that means you've had a new inflammation flare. Why is a new inflammation flare bad? Because that's what causes damage. Why is damage bad? Because brain damage ain't never good. And it accumulates to disability and it affects you over time. So if you have a flare-up of your old symptoms because you have a urinary tract infection, absolutely, that's bad. We want to treat that, we want to get rid of that, but that flare-up isn't a new set of inflammation that we need to keep track of. So wait a minute, why does it matter if we keep track of the new sets of inflammation? Because if you have new relapses using that inflammatory definition, that's a marker that your disease-modifying therapy may not be working. And that needs to be tracked. If every spring, when your allergies kick in, you don't walk as well, that's not a failure of your medication. That's your MS coming out because you have your allergies. If every time you get out in the heat, you can't see out of your left eye from your old optic neuritis, that's not a failure of your medication. It's a condition that is so well known that it is named after the physician who described it, Dr. Uthoff. When a person with old optic neuritis gets overheated, their eye may go blind again. It's kind of like, I broke my wrist when I was a kid, and every time it snows and rains at the same time, I don't know why that brings it out, my wrist aches. Did I break my wrist again? Nope. It's just my wrist reminding me, yeah, you probably should have been using those handlebars on that bicycle. And I probably should have been, but doggone it, I won the contest to not touch the handlebars, and that's what's important. So that's why we want to know what a relapse is. Why is it important to treat a relapse? Well, this is actually a little bit more controversial. There is old data that essentially boils down to whether or not you take steroids to dampen an attack, you're going to be just as well off 6 months from now as if you didn't. There's other data that says, well, maybe the steroids decrease the inflammation and result in less disability. So here's what I tell my patients. Keep in mind, we're down in Christiansburg, and I say, all right, you came here from Roanoke, you want to get back to Roanoke. Okay, so that's where you were before the exacerbation. Now you've had your exacerbation, which landed you in Christiansburg. We like Christiansburg. This isn't a bad thing about Christiansburg. You want to get back to Roanoke. You've got 2 ways to get there. You can take a bicycle and get there slowly but surely, or you can hop on a rocket and you can get there a lot faster, but it's going to be a lot more unpredictable and it might just burn your butt. So steroids are like the rocket, right? They're going to get you better faster, but they're going to drive up your blood sugars. They're going to make you have a hard time healing. They can cause infections in your teeth, osteoporosis, cataracts, poor wound healing, thinning of the skin, and a partridge in a pear tree. They're nasty, but some people feel awesome on them and they get them better faster. Other people hate steroids. They get all of those side effects. They're mean, they're nasty, they gain 30 pounds, their husband has to move out for a week and a half. And quite frankly, if they know that tingling in their fingers is going to get better in 6 months anyway, thanks a lot, we'll do it without the steroids. So I actually give my patients the choice on steroids because I really feel like that is a decision that you and I both have to make. If you've got bad diabetes and it's going to send you into ketoacidosis if I put you on steroids, you got to have a pretty bad exacerbation of your MS before I'm going to be willing to take that medical risk. However, if you have a pretty bad exacerbation and there's no other reason not to and you usually respond to steroids, absolutely, let's go for it. So whether or not you treat it is as individual as how you pick your therapy and what your MS does for you, in my opinion. Now, there are other neurologists that if you call them and say, I have a new MS symptom, you may as well stop talking then. You are going to get steroids. You're going to get 5 days of IV Solumedrol followed by a prednisone taper. Do not collect $200. Do not pass go. Don't even bother going to jail. This is what's going to happen. Why? Because the data is not clear. There's no absolute guideline that we all follow, and we have different experiences and different opinions on what we should do for an exacerbation or a relapse or a flare or new symptoms. Now, some of my patients say, well, if I haven't had a relapse by the inflammatory definition and you don't think I have a new lesion and this isn't new MS, why did I respond to steroids? Well, because quite frankly, some people just feel awesome on steroids. So, like her. She feels good on steroids. I'm reading her body language. So some people feel a lot better. And some people, it just kind of pushes them over the speed bump. Some people, we may be treating something else. If it's because your allergies are worse, we give you steroids for your allergies, boop, cleared up that problem, and it can get you going again. Other people don't feel good on steroids. So that's kind of relapses and what to do about them and why we keep track of them in a nutshell. What questions do you all have about relapses? And keep in mind, I have no watch on, so I talk until you turn off the cameras and the mic. Yes?
I'm having trouble with my trigeminal nerve, and he put me on steroids, but they don't seem to be helping.
Is the trouble, she has a trouble with her trigeminal nerve, put on steroids doesn't seem to be helping. Have you ever had trouble with your trigeminal nerve before?
Once before, like
Okay, so has had on the same side?
yeah.
Okay, has had trigeminal nerve trouble on the same side before as well. So if we go for the definition of an inflammatory relapse, it's not a new symptom because you've had it before. So it's possible that this isn't inflammatory. Steroids work for inflammation. If instead you have old damage to the trigeminal nerve that your nerve has been compensating for and making up for, but now you've got, as an example, this may not apply to you, arthritis in the jaw that's irritating that old spot and annoying that nerve, you'll get more trigeminal neuralgia. If, for example, the weather's been really hot, and your nervous system is just short-circuiting a little bit, that might be coming out. The steroids wouldn't work in those situations necessarily. What else can you do to alleviate the pain in trigeminal neuralgia? There are a number of things that work. One, these are all off-label: baclofen, tizanidine, gabapentin, Tegretol, Lyrica, nerve blocks. So I had a patient several years ago who had horrible trigeminal neuralgia. Poor guy could not open his mouth. I contacted his dentist and said, can you block the nerve? Because if you block the nerve, even though there's damage in the nerve, it'll take care of the pain, and then I know for sure what I'm dealing with, because he also had some dental problems. The dentist said, well, no, I'm not really comfortable doing that, but I'll send the injections with the medication to you. Because I do this all the time, right? So one of my other patients who came in that morning just fortuitously happened to be a dentist, and I said, so how do you block that nerve? He said, oh, well, you just stick the needle in there. I said, really? Is there anything you need to worry about? I'm not really familiar with jaw anatomy. He said, no, there's no blood vessels, nothing. So the guy comes into my office. I take the needles that were sent to me from the dentist, loaded it up with the medication that was sent from the dentist to do this nerve block, put it in his mouth, injected it. Within 3 minutes, he was starting to talk. Within 5 minutes, he was smiling. And for the rest of his life, which was another year and a half, he died from non-MS related things. He had no more pain in the jaw. Now, that doesn't work for everybody. Usually if they do a nerve block, they do it right through the outside of the jaw. My mistake was, right after I did it and he responded to it, I was like, that is so cool. I have never done that before. The look he gave me was priceless, and then he smiled and he was like, that's all right, we got it. So, sometimes we have to be dentists too when the dentist is nervous, but he did great, and nerve blocks really do well. Now, I've never done one since. I send folks to pain management, and pain management can put in a combination of steroid and a numbing agent that will block the nerve as well. So there are a lot of ways of taking care of trigeminal nerve pain. Does it always work? No. You can go through every bit of that and it can still hurt, and that's a challenge.
This is just a curiosity thing, but why are some relapses worse than others? Because I haven't had one in a very long time, but I've had like a really bad one, and then I've had a minimal one.
So it depends on where in the nervous system the relapse is. It depends on whether or not it is inflammatory. It depends on your definition and your priority. So for example, if you're right-handed and do everything with your right hand, a little numbness in the left hand may not be that big of a deal. But if for a living you're a concert violinist, that could kill your career. So what's bad and what's not bad partially is a matter of definition. It's also partly a matter of where in the nervous system the problem is. So if you have an area of inflammation deep down in the brain where there's a lot of other connections that do the same thing, you may never feel it. If, on the other hand, you have it right in the middle of your optic nerve, even a small lesion is going to knock out the vision in that eye. So part of it is where it is and what functions it causes a problem with.
Suzanne first.
Suzanne.
You're so laid back and so cool. This is so exciting.
I've never been this cool. You all heard her tell me that, right?
Thank you for all your questions, everybody, and we want to thank Dr. Kramer for coming down here today, and thank you very much. And we all want to thank you again for being with us for our first program in Virginia, and hope that we could do the same for you. We're going to come back next year, not just around here, but we want to get to Lynchburg. We want to get to Frederick, I think it is, or Fredericksburg. They also asking us to go to over by the beaches, over by Newport News, I think it's called. I don't know this area. So we're being asked to do all these things, and our grant writers are putting in for this for next year. And hopefully Dr. Kramer will come back, and we'll do it on another Saturday where we schedule it a little bit longer and with a little bit different topics, and she'll wow you and dazzle you with everything again, okay? So again, thank you for coming here today. Be good, everybody.